The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes The Fray on April 26th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Legendary rapper Rakim performs live at Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland this Friday, April 18th. I spoke to the groundbreaking MC about his internal rhyme schemes across a career of hip-hop hits, including Paid in Full, I Ain't No Joke, I Know You Got Soul, Follow the Leader, Don't Sweat the Technique, and Juice, Know the Ledge. Rakim, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, Jay?
I got you. Hey, thank you so much for joining the show today. This is an honor.
Thank you so much, bro. Thanks for the welcome, man.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? You're arguably I don't mind saying it, arguably the greatest rap MC, lyricist, wordsmith that's ever done it. So we're really happy to have you on. We're talking
Thanks
because
so much, bro. Thank you, bro.
Of course. You grew up with your stuff. So we're talking because you're coming to the Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland on Friday, April 18th, and we're calling this tour, it's called the 18th Letter after, you're named after your first solo album, after all the duo stuff. So will you be playing that solo album start to finish or sprinkling in any of the Eric B. duo stuff or what set list wise? Give us a little teaser.
Yeah, we got me and my man, technician and DJ, man. We put together a nice show, man. And we're gonna do a few songs from that album, definitely, man. But just you know, having fun with the many titles that I gave myself, through the years. It's also, I think, the anniversary for the 18th letter coming up, man. So we just want to kind of highlight that and again have some fun with it.
Now you said technician, the DJ, not Tech Nine, right? There's difference.
Yes, technician, the DJ, technician.
Yeah, although shout out Tech Nine can
Peace to my man
rap
Tech
fast.
Nine too.
He's
That's right.
one of the fastest rappers ever. Check him out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But you taught him and everybody else, as we'll get into the, you inspired everybody after you, as we'll get in throughout this interview. But yeah, you said it's one of the different. You've had many names over the years, the God MC, etc. But yeah, R. We should say for maybe newcomers that are checking you out, R is the 18th letter of the alphabet, and so there you go. That's where
Yes,
it comes
sir.
from.
Yes, sir.
And that album, all the stuff with Eric B was huge, but that album, we do have to say, when that dropped in late 97 or whatever, that topped the Billboard R&B hip hop albums chart. So that was right out of the gate to the top. And I love the opening lyrics. It was one of those great like I'm still here statements, like forget about Dre, like something like that, where you're like, just when things seem the same and the whole scene is lame, I come and reign with the unexplained for the brains till things change, they strain to sling slang and I'm trained to bring game. Was that you did you want to open that song with that to be like, don't call it a comeback, I'm still here, baby?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was definitely a statement, to let people know that, I still do it. Kick them balls right there. I ain't hear nothing wrong. Word up. But yeah, man, that album was a big project for me, man. It's funny. It's like since I dropped my first album, it's like I've been in competition with myself, man. So I try to use that as having one up, man. If I can just be a better me, then I'm okay. You know what I mean?
I love that you say you're in competition with yourself. I'm sure that, the greats of any, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, I think they're probably the same. And Rakim, I'm putting you in that league for your different disciplines, rap in your case. But you're playing your competition with
Thank you, my brother.
yourself, and because you always have all these people, especially in the days of internet and social media, are always making their lists and their Mount Rushmores of the goats of hip hop, etc. But it's refreshing to say you're in competition with yourself. There's only one
Yes,
Rakim,
sir.
so you just got to beat Rakim, and that's all you need to do.
Yes, sir, man. You know what I mean? I try not to get caught up in what's going on with the uh that the battling MCs and all that. We all creatively, ready to do what we got to do, man. But I always kind of, felt if I can just, again, man, be in competition with myself and just try to be, better than I was on the last project. I think, for me, that was a better direction.
I like that. So yeah, you're saying you don't get up caught up in the Drake versus Kendrick battles, etc., whatever it is. You're just Rakim versus Rakim. You're dissing yourself and pushing yourself
There you go. Word up. You know what I mean? Which in the Drake and Kendrick battle, was definitely good for hip hop, man. You know what I mean?
all the
I
way to the
don't
Super Bowl.
There you go. You know what I mean? So it's good to see, the competition is, still there, the competition aspect of hip hop. Um, it didn't get too crazy, it did, go left at the end with the but it's good to see, hip hop still, in competition, man. Again, long as it don't get too crazy.
Absolutely. Well, I like that you're in competition with yourself. And now that you're mentioning the competition and the greats and the goats, etc. I wanted to read a quote by Eminem of all people, who basically says you're the his goat. He says, quote, "Think about the first time you heard Rakim. He's always on my list because to me, greatness is not only how well you do something, but if you were the first to do it. Rakim is the first person I heard that started using inside rhyme schemes. He did something that hadn't even been thought of yet. He single-handedly pushed the genre forward to be more complex lyrically. And I think that is your legacy and that you continue is those inside rhyme schemes. And I guess we should explain to the listeners what that means, right? Explain to maybe a newcomer what that means of when you're if you see lyrics on a page, how there's like a rhyme within the line, right? Explain to them real quick.
Yes, we call it internal rhyming.
Yeah.
That's inside the bars. And I kind of started that looking for new ways to write. And I think it's because, when I was young, I had this job for about a week. And
What was the
I was
job?
it worked up. I was a young cat in school, and I always like, I was real young, but I always like, the finer things in life, man. The sneakers, the clothes, the Kango hats, and
Yeah.
the jewelry. You know what I mean? A little chain here, a little chain there. Go put down on layaway. But anyway, man, I used to work at this little job, and I was working at a paper grafting place where you had to read the graph and cut it, at a certain, number where, the graph, facilitated whatever the company wanted. So I
Like
learned
a
how to do
printing
graph.
press or like a
Yeah, we was making grafting paper for people,
I
and
got you.
they'd call up with a certain, measurement, and you had to sit there and measure the graph out and cut it for them and
Yeah.
make, you know. So, but doing that, I think I started looking at my rhyme paper later on like that. Like I was writing on graph paper and I started
Um,
to fill in rhymes, you know, internally instead of just at the end of the bar. And once I started doing it, man, it just got more intricate where I just, started having fun with it, man. But yeah, we call it and Melly Mel every time I see him, he'd be like, "Yeah, right, you and started the internal rhyme." But yeah, man, it's just getting a little more technical with the bars.
I love that. So it's grafting paper. You're like, it's basically laying paper on top of each other and laying lyrics on top of each other, inside each other. That's where it comes from. I love that story. Thank
Word
you.
up. Yes,
Um,
sir.
but that is why hip hop is, starting to get honored in, all these award shows, etc., and big anniversaries celebrated, etc. Because not only is it fun, we listen to it at the club, in the car, whatever, but like it's for folks like you. You made it an art form all those years ago, and that's what we celebrate is the internal rhyming and the art form and the lyricism, and we owe it all to, well, not all, but a lot of it to Rakim in the early days.
Thank
So,
you. Thank
congrats.
you, my brother. Yes,
I
sir.
should, and so you're talking about sort of growing up, and working in the early days of laying the paper on each other. So I should tell everyone you were born on Long Island, New York, right? In '68, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So what were you creatively listening to back then, or was it poetry you were reading, or I don't know. I want to know what was inspiring those rhymes to begin with.
I owe a lot. Oh, that to my mother and father, man. They always listen to good music in the house. Everything from jazz to R&B. My mother, she sang everything from opera, jazz, and R&B. She even performed at amateur night at the Apollo when she
Nice.
was young. So, I get the music gene from her. Pops always knew, what was good music. So, he kept the house, him and mom kept the house definitely filled with good music. But I think when I was young, I think the jazz had a lot to do with me learning time and space. Jazz music is, like hip hop is 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jazz comes in many different time cadences. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
being a young kid trying to listen to jazz, and I always remember trying to find the one where you go through the count and go back to one because it wasn't always very rare was it 4/4 time in jazz. So I think learning jazz and playing instruments when I was young, learning music, I think that gave me a great understanding of time and space. So I was able to manipulate that with hip hop because hip hop to me the timing is easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jazz could be 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? 5/8, 5 count, 8 bars. But learning jazz just gave me uh a profound understanding of timing, man. And I was able to take syllables and different rhythms and place them where MCs wouldn't normally place words, kind of playing it off the beat, putting words in different places, man. But
Yeah.
mom and pop kept me right coming up. Word up.
I love what you're saying about, if you can learn the faster time of jazz and that can be chaotic and improvisational live as well. So, but if you can keep up with that, then you're almost seeing when it comes into hip hop and it's you said it's what a 4/4. Um,
Yeah, 4/4.
it's I love that I'm imagining like a quarterback. Well, we're from DC, so I'm just thinking Jaden Daniels, and he does these these VR head glasses to prepare for the
Incredible
games.
quarterback.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it feels like when he gets in the game, everything feels slower, and he can make the passes because he's going faster in VR headsets. But you're reminding me of that. You're like, okay, well, I can totally manipulate all these syllables and rap if I can do jazz. So anyway, that's what I'm
Indeed.
thinking. You're the
Exactly. Exactly. Word up.
you're the Jaden Daniels of early hip hop. I love
Word
it.
up. Shout out to Jada Daniels. I played quarterback when I was young, man. I thought I was gonna go to, the NFL when I was young. So
Oh, you
I
did.
got
Well,
a
yeah,
great
nice.
love for quarterbacks, man.
I was an outside linebacker, so I was trying to sack you.
Oh yeah, so yeah, we would have been in competition, man. I was kind of nice out there, bro.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have schooled me. But awesome. All right, and then just moving chronologically. So that was you growing up. Thank you. I love hearing all the inspirations. But then and you've probably told this part a million times. So we can do it kind of quick. But how did you meet Eric B? Then I know he was from Queens. You're from Long Island, and together you would form one of the greatest DJ MC duos ever at that time. I get I mean, back then you're thinking what DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince. There's a bunch of duos coming up around that time, but you guys were arguably the best to do it. So how did you all actually meet and come under to record at Marley Marl's place?
um, it was a friend. What was ironically, we played football together. A
Oh,
friend of my
perfect
neighbor.
segue from what we were
We,
just saying.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Word up. So yeah, man, my friend Alvin Tony, running back, used to live down the street from me. We played football since PAL, 7 years old. But he had a aunt that knew Eric B. And Eric B went over his aunt's house one day. Alvin met him and he told my friend, yo, I'm looking for MCs. And Alvin took him to a couple MCs houses, out there in Long Island, and mine's was one of them, and the rest was history, man.
Oh, instant connection, I'm sure, and that's awesome.
Word up.
I should.
Yes, sir. Word
That's
up.
That's great. And together you make, as you would later sing in Don't Sweat the Technique, I think. You said I made my debut in 86. So this is where we are now. You're making your debut in 86. I guess Eric B. as president is the first one technically on that first album. I guess drops in 87, paid in full. I want to ask you about that iconic title track. So many years later, everyone are still bumping to Paid in Full. So many memorable phrases like "Get my hands on some dead presidents." People quote that all the time. Fish, which is my favorite dish. People have an affinity for that line. Do you remember where you were? Do you remember where you were when you jot down "Fish is my favorite dish"? Are you? Is that like the back of a napkin at a restaurant, or is it a notepad on the back of a bus? You know, where were you jotting that down? Do you remember?
Um, I think I was just kind of being me. You know what I mean? Back in the day, what was dope is Eric B knew Marley Marl and Mr. Magic.
Mr.
That's
Magic.
how we and yeah, that's
As
how we
Biggie, as Biggie immortalized that line.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Word up. So, that's how we ended up at Queensbridge recording at Marley Marl's house, which was epic, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, just being in a moment back then and trying to introduce myself to the world, you know what I mean? And what was crazy is when me and Eric B got our first check, we was sitting there looking at the checks, and it was two things that we noticed on the check. One of them was the president's name was on it, Ronald Reagan, and number two, it said paid in full on the check. So right after we did the Eric B as president and the melody, well, as we was, after we did it, because we went and got signed after that.
Yeah.
And the first check we got, I remember we was sitting there looking at the check, and Eric B said, "Yo, that's what we gonna call it, paid in full." And
That's great. I love that
word up,
backstory. You actually saw that on your first check, and that inspired the name of the next. That's fantastic.
word up,
I
word
love
up.
it. Well, I also want to do another deep dive on some other songs on that album because I Ain't No Joke was on there as well, and that's huge as well. I mean, to me, few songs speak better to like that relationship, like we're talking between the DJ MC duo, like in creating the art form in some of those lines. Like for instance, Eric B has that. Is it a brass instrument? The is that a horn or trumpet? I don't know. But he's got that loop in the background while your lyrics are saying, even if it's jazz, like we were saying, even if it's jazz or the
Right.
quiet storm, I hook a beat up and convert it into hip hop form. So you're kind of referencing your parents, right? You're talking about the jazz and the quiet storm is what's a mixture of R&B, slow jam, whatever a quiet storm is, and but then you hook the Eric B beat up, and you Rakim converted into hip hop form. Like, are you trying to sort of like self-reflexively explain, call attention to the craft that ultimately creates these tunes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Giving them little hints and you know things that kind of let them know, you know, what I've been through and how I look at, hip hop and writing rhymes. So,
Yeah,
and what was funny is I remember early um talking to it was Herbie Love Bug down with Salt Pepper, peace to Herb and Salt Pepper.
nice.
But I remember talking to him, and this is like 86, and he was asking me certain questions, and I had just met Herbie that day. Him and Eric B. I think they went to school together. So I had just met Herbie, but he was asking me questions, and I remember I was kind of holding back, from answering the questions because at the time I knew I had something. I ain't really understand what it was, but the questions that he was asking me, I was like holding back and not giving him, the full page. And that's when I started realizing that I had something different. You know what I mean? I had a lot of respect for Herbie as a producer and, you know, so, for him to just sit down and ask me questions like that, I said, okay, I better hold on to this jewel and kind of keep it to myself. But I used to always give them hints and let them know. And if it wasn't in the wordplay, it might have been a sample. Some of the samples that I used was, jazz samples. So, having fun with it, but trying not to give away the secret. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, one more off of that because I know you. My listeners would kill me if I don't go into "I Know You Got Soul" because for us DC folks, it almost the beat of that almost is a little bit of a DC, like a go-go Chuck Brown. Yeah, we
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
big
kind
up
of.
to Chuck Brown, no doubt.
Yeah, rest in peace. But
Yes,
down here in
sir.
DC where you're playing Bethesda Theater, that beat is gonna get people dancing. But your lyrics then so that's that's Eric B's side of it, the beat and everything. But your lyrics got almost immediately in the coming years right after that song released got sampled and repeated like when you say pump up the volume that later was what was it the British group Mars did a whole song
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
your line.
Yes, sir.
Even the title, I Know You Got Soul. When I hear that, I think of Public Enemy saying that and Fight the Power, brothers and
Right.
sisters. Yeah. But when you hear other groups as great as, Public Enemy or even Mars referencing it at that time, is that like the ultimate compliment? You're like, wow, I created something that within the span of a few years now, it's now getting, enshrined into immortality.
No doubt, no doubt. It's crazy because in the beginning, um, kind of just acknowledging what was going on in the neighborhood. A couple things that was going on was, people resignating the phrases. If it wasn't a sweatshirt or like an 80s, end of 86, 87, people started putting, little slogans or short phrases on the side of their car. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So immediately my thing was, yo, I'm gonna make a phrase to, make people wanna, wear the phrase or put it on their car and that's how I Ain't No Joke was born. I know everybody's mentality was, I ain't no joke, just feeding off of New York City and just the world in general. But that was a phrase that I knew people would gravitate to. Um, and I know you got soul, was again part of me putting phrases in songs that again, I wanted people to kind of gravitate to. And like I said, I could take a phrase that's rarely heard, flip it. Now it's a daily word. So that was my little, my little thing, man. Just trying to come up with memorable phrases and things that the listener would take and use for themselves.
I like that that wasn't like an accident on the back end. It was actually something proactively you were thinking about going in. You're like, I'm gonna create these catchphrases like I ain't no joke and I know you got soul. I love it. And then
Yes,
other
sir.
people start referencing it. Uh
Yes, sir. That's
well,
the best part. That's the best part when they when it works. That's the best part.
absolutely. Well, this is the perfect segue into the next album because you reference your own line because you say follow the leader in I Know You Got Soul, I believe. That is a lyric in that song. But then it
Yes, sir.
becomes the name of you're like, I'm gonna reference myself. It becomes the name of your second album, Follow the Leader.
That's
Uh
right. That's
I
right.
love it. Another iconic title track. Yeah, if folks are trying to remember it, it's the one that starts off, Rakim will say, boo, 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 boo. Yeah, anyway, follow me into a solo. But I think the production, is it just me or does the production sound fuller by that one? Is that because the first album is such a hit and that, maybe a little more money behind it at that point?
No, to be honest, you know, I a lot of people are just finding out that I did a lot of the tracks, as well. That's why I said
Mm.
I hook a beat up,
Ah,
converted
okay,
into hip
okay.
hop form. You know what I mean?
Oh. There's some
Eric did.
legality stuff there.
No, not really legal. It
Yeah.
was it was just that, in the beginning it made the group, I think I'm talking too much. But
Nah,
it was cool that everybody, you know, thought Eric was doing the tracks and I was doing the rhyme. So I never said nothing in the beginning about me producing a
yeah.
lot of the music.
It's
But
easier. That's an easier narrative to sell to interviews, etc. At the time, it's like,
it,
okay, yeah, we're a
yeah,
duo.
no
Yeah, yeah,
doubt.
yeah, yeah.
No doubt.
I
But
got
yeah, man, I was doing a lot. Like the follow the leader, I put a few samples in there, and then when I started to add the Bob James sample, Nautilus, I mean it started taking off.
you.
And you know, what was dope again is, the first album I was just learning how to, sample my own beats.
Yeah,
Um, and what I had to do, I had to let the engineer know what I wanted sampled. Sample for these 4 bars of this, and then I put on another record sample. I want 2 bars of this. You know what I mean? And what was dope, um, being at the beginning stage of producing, I was lucky to have a person like Pat Adams, who passed away, man, who was a brilliant artist and engineer that helped me, put all this together, me and Eric B. You know what I mean? And it was crazy because sometimes I would go to the studio with like 4 different samples, and one of them might be out of pitch. So my man Pat would sit there and we would pitch the samples so that it was in key with the other samples. So it was a dope process, learning how to produce and learning from somebody that was smart and as great as Pat Adams at the
Nice.
same time. So like everything kind of fell in place for me and Eric B to uh, be successful. You know what I mean?
Thanks for giving Pat Adams his flowers because he also
Oh
did
man,
Let the Rhythm Hit Him, right? 90, the third album and Within the Ghetto and Mahogany and all that stuff. And so he continued, you continued to work with him even after that.
yes sir, man. He was my favorite engineer, man. Like
Yeah,
just like perfect. You know, chemistry in the studio with him, man. Just brilliant, man. Love him. And again, man, rest in peace to my big brother.
absolutely. Thanks for giving him his flowers for sure.
Yes, sir.
Well, I know we'd be here all day if we go through all your albums, but I have to hit the fourth Don't Sweat the Technique in what 92. Not only because it's one of those great amazing bass lines and what saxophone and I guess harkening back to the jazz and stuff that you grew up listening
Yes,
to with
sir.
your
Yes,
parents.
sir.
But that was always my favorite song of yours as a kid because I first saw it on a VHS tape called NBA Jam Session. Do you remember that?
Right,
It
right.
was used like as
Yeah.
basketball highlights, and you'd have Jordan and Sean Kemp, postering dunking people, and it'd be in the background would be you going, "Don't sweat the technique." It was great.
Word up. Yes, sir.
uh,
Beautiful times, man, to hear your music being, kind of, backdropped with, some of my heroes, man. Michael Jordan, come on, man.
I mean,
Sean Kemp, yeah, but, it just a dope feeling, man.
well, there was a bunch. Was it Rex and Effect had just shake your rump, but in that tape it was just shake the rim.
Right,
Everybody got
right.
in on that. But then you had Steely Dan reeling in the years. Whatever. It was all over. It ran the gamut. But anyway, I'm sidetracking. But I do want to talk about don't the craft of Don't Sweat the Technique a little bit because what's my favorite line in terms of we're talking like the craft of it. You say pencils and pens or swords, letters put together form a key to chords. I'm also a sculpture, born with the structure. Because of my culture, I'm a rip and destruct the. There you go again. You have the dot dot dot. You got to go to the next stanza, whatever the phrase is, to hear the rest of the line. Like
Right.
the rhymes don't end. They like tee up the next line, and it just keeps flowing. So anyway, memories of putting "Don't Sweat the Technique" together.
Man, one of my favorite joints. Again, man, that jazz bass line. I remember I was living in Manhattan when we made that. A friend of mine, his brother named Rashawn, he came over with the record, and he was like, "Yo, Ryan, you got to check this out. You got to check this out." So we threw the record on, and immediately, he played the bass line. I was like, "Oh, that's it right there, bro."
Mm. Dun,
So
dun, dun,
we
dun,
sampled it
dun.
up, word up, sampled it up immediately, man. And I think I kicked him out so I could start writing. And I just remember when I came up with the title, um, you know, it you know, hip hop was getting big as far as advertisement and things of that nature. And of course, I was big in sports. And again, man, certain things, when you're sitting down and you're trying to sell yourself or you're trying to uh, make art make sense, you think of different things you can do or different ways, you can make art that make it gravitate towards people. And Sweat the Technique was a song that, I was being a little sarcastic to MCs, but the the I guess the interior motive was to get it played on ESPN. and
Ah,
sport. You know what I mean?
like what we were just talking about.
Yes, sir. You know what I mean? So, and again, man, like to do that, and it works because Sweat the Technique is one of my most songs that's played on sports, ESPN, basketball games, football games. It's funny, I could be sitting watching the football game and then boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's the best feeling in the world, man. But knowing, technique, you know what I mean? Like everybody, if it's a sport, if it's
Yeah.
music,
And you sweat, and
any,
athletes are sweating, and it's technique. It's perfect.
you know what I mean? So, I was hoping that they would gravitate towards it, man, and it definitely worked. But I just remember, just trying to come up with game plans and, metaphors that will pertain to, you know, things of that nature. But again, man, it was me being sarcastic to MCs, kind of letting them know that I was on to them, taking little bits of my styles and little slogans here and there, and you know, taking the way I do things. So it was a dope record to make, man.
We'll continue to peep the technique for years to come. But I mean, seriously, you mentioned the bass line, but also shout out to the what is it, the saxophone? Because
Oh
I can't
man,
think of many rap songs that you say the chorus, don't sweat the technique, but then it just blasts you. It's
word up, the
perfect.
cool and the gang horns ain't nothing better than that,
Is
man.
that what
Like,
that's from? Did you
yeah,
borrow? Is that the sample? Okay.
yes sir, word up,
What
cool and the
track? What
gang.
track? Do you remember?
Um, oh man, I can't remember the name of it. Oh,
It's all right. We're gonna give
but
everybody
yeah, yeah.
homework after they listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
Go look it
man.
up.
Word up. I'll even text it to you, man. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Got you,
Um,
bro.
awesome. Well,
But yeah, like the horns was so prominent, man, to me in hip hop. Like again, you can just, you can let the horns be the hook. You ain't really have to
yeah.
say much, But that was, horns is one of my loves, man.
Oh, it's amazing. And of course, so that one, like you're saying, enters pop culture with ESPN and all these NBA highlight tapes and stuff. But you also got on the Juice soundtrack, the Tupac movie, rest in peace. But with Know the Ledge, that was also a huge song. I think I read somewhere that 50 Cent said that was the song that made him want to be a rapper. So that's high praise as well. But yeah, why do you think people were drawn to Know the Ledge?
That man, that was a dope experience, man. I remember sitting at the house. I was living in Manhattan at the time. I remember sitting at the house and I get a phone call and they asked me if I wanted to do a song for a movie, but they also asked would I like to come see the movie. So I was like, yeah, that'd be dope. I can watch the movie and, see what it's about to see if I wanted to incorporate anything in the song. Long story short, I get there, watch the movie, and then when the movie ends, they asked me if I could do the title track to the movie. So I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, no doubt, because I just watched the movie. I love the movie, and at the moment, all these ideas in my head about what I just seen. So I told them I definitely wanted to do the title track. I go straight home. I go in my little pre-production spot that I had at the time. And maybe a week before that, I went record shopping. And what I would do is I would, go shopping. I'll play the songs, and if I hear something, I would just put it to the side and come back to it later. I get home, man. I grab that stack that I had to the side to see if I had anything that, you know, sound like the movie or.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I think maybe the second record that I pulled out. Boom, doo 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 doo. Yo, I almost scratched the record. I got so excited. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. It was like that easy, man. Like the
Yeah.
second record that I pulled out of the stack. So immediately I cut my SB 1200 on. That was a sampler that we had back in the day. Big sampler for hip hop. SB 1200. Immediately I cut it on. Thing about that though is the SB 1200 only has so much sampling time. So you can only sample, a short bass line and a little bit of drums. And if you sample it right, you might get a little bit of horns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I sample a bass line. I couldn't find the drums I wanted, so I put like a frame of a, like we call it, just a almost like a rough sample of the drums, just to hold me so I can write. But long story short, man, I remember um, sampling that loop up, and I started writing right away, and it was like I think I wrote 3 bars, excuse me, 3 verses in a matter of like 2 hours,
Mm.
which is like rare for me. I like to take my time. But for that, it was almost like doing a book report. You read the book and then you report on what you read. I watched the movie and kind of, put my understanding on what I seen. But dope project, man. I remember going to the studio. I had to write one more verse because there's 4 verses on that. And I still didn't have the drums. So I grabbed a stack of records to hopefully finish it at the studio. Figure, all right, when I get to the studio, I'll find the right drums and I'll sample that on and then I'm done. I get at the studio. The lady that hired me, Kathy Nelson, good friend of mine, she's there. And then Hank Shockley's there because he was like the overseer of the soundtrack. So I get there and you know, telling them, I got to write one more verse, but I want to put the drums on it so I can, get that extra feel. Couldn't find no record. Push come to shove, I looked in the 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 sound area of the studio, and they had the drum set hooked up. And again, Patrick Adams was there. I said, Pat, is them drums hooked up? He said, yeah, man. I went in the studio in a instrument section of the studio and played live drums on Juice. So again, man, that was one of my favorite projects to do, man. The movie, I love, Tupac and
Omar
you
Epps.
know Omar. Yeah, man, everybody did a hell of a job on it. It was a new feel, at that time of a young urban somewhat, yeah, hip hop, movie coming out. So, felt good to be a part of it, but the 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 process of making that, man, was just dope, and I enjoyed it, man. And again, getting a chance to play drums on a record topped it off for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a good point. Because that comes out a year after John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, and shout out to the director Ernest Dickerson, who had been Spike Lee's cinematographer all the way back to like his film school,
Yes,
NYU
sir.
thesis, the Joe's Bed-Stuy barbershop one. Of
Word
course,
up.
and so basically Ernest shot, Spike's directing, but Ernest is behind the camera doing She's Gotta Have It in School Days and Do the Right Thing and all the, Mo Better
Yes,
Blues and
sir.
Jungle
Word
Fever,
up.
Malcolm X. I mean, it's great. All that was building to him finally getting his shot in Juice, and you're right there helping it bring it to fruition with the soundtrack. That's you're a part of movie history as well for that part. That's cool.
Yes, sir, man. It's an honor. Word up, man.
Do you have a favorite movie? I'm just tangenting, but I'm always curious. You're a music
Um,
legend, but what do you like to watch or genre if you can't pick one?
Um, uh, movies. I got a lot of
Yeah.
different movies, man. That I kind of like for different reasons, man.
Yeah.
My problem is though is I don't get a lot of time to watch movies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
I'm
recording.
always, yeah, I'm always kind of, heading a notepad, or if I'm not doing that, I might be kind of researching for something I'm trying to do lyrically.
Yeah. Those internal rhymes don't write themselves for you.
Word up, bro. You know what I mean?
Takes
If I'm
time.
not, yeah, man. So, I love keeping my head in, information, man,
Yeah.
is, even though I don't like reading, I, read as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but it's kind of second nature now, man. It's kind of what I do. Sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it.
Yeah. Did you and Tupac stay in touch in a few years after that movie before he sadly was killed? But did you guys have like a bond after that, or rap wise, was there like mutual respect, or did you view you guys as slightly different artists? Or I'm curious, the relation after
Oh,
Juice.
what's crazy is I met Tupac. before Digital Underground
Right. He was
made their
dancing. You're
debut.
right. He was doing the Humpty dance. You're right. On
Facts,
stage.
facts.
Forgot. Yeah.
I went to a show. I think it was in Miami, and Tupac, um, my man Humpty. I didn't know he can draw, man. He was standing out there with this big poster of me laying on a slab of bricks with a bunch of MCs under the brick, which was dope. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So we stopped the tour bus, and I met them and got them backstage passes. Um, Took them in, introduced them to the other artists, and that was the last time I seen them until they made their record. So it was kind of dope. You know, I was like, oh, yo, that's the brothers that did the song, man. I still got the picture that they gave me to this day. It's in my mic booth.
Yeah.
But I met Tupac then, and then years later, after the Juice soundtrack came out, a friend of mine put us on the phone. Pac was in the studio, and they called me up, and I chopped it up with him, man. We spoke for a quick, maybe 3 minutes. And he let me know, how much he loved me and respect me. And I let him know, how much I appreciate and love what he was doing. And, for him, um, being an artist and acting. So, just giving him his props to let him know that, not only did I remember them from Florida, but I'm a fan now and keep doing what you do, man.
Nice.
So it was kind of short and sweet, but I think it was good that we spoke to each other to let each other know how we feel about each other, man.
That is great. That is great. Well, I know you said at the top that you're only in competition with yourself, so you're probably not in the business of ranking your fellow MCs. But if there are, if there are a couple that you don't have to rank them, but if there are a couple that sort of that you as a fellow craftsman, a lyricist, appreciate. I mean, I read you the Eminem quote about you at the top.
Well, from Eminem, man, much respect. He definitely a artist that I respect for pushing the ball, man. Incredible lyricist, man. Just one of my all-time favorite MCs. And I got a wide span of MCs that I love and appreciate, them for what they do. Um, and that goes from M to Kendrick, man, to brothers like Black Thought, um, which I always said was one of the um, underrated MCs in the game, man. But I always looked at MCing for you know if you call it the wordsmith or the word play or the originality as well, and but it's just a lot of MCs that I respect for what they do. A lot of them for being different, original, um, groundbreaking, and it helps me stay a fan of hip hop, man. To like they say, real respect rails, but it's a
Yeah,
few.
game recognized game.
Yes, sir. Always.
That's why I wanted to read that Eminem quote because everyone always talks today about his lyrics, and for sure. But there's a reason he holds you up. You know what I mean? Like it's game recognized game. And thanks for shouting out Black Thought. Everyone knows the Roots, etc. But underrated in my
Yes,
opinion.
sir.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you've been more than generous with your time, so I guess we should like run. But I guess sort of like in the final seconds, I did want to say, I think I'm gonna start the drum beat for pun not intended. I think you should be going in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next. They have a lot of hip hop groups in lately. I think you should be next in line. If Public Enemy and NWA and all them are in there, where's Eric B and Rakim as a duo, or just Rakim with the solo stuff too? What do we got to do to get you in?
Hey, I don't know, man, but I figured if I keep working and keep showing my craft, maybe they'll, pay attention to me, man. But that'll be a blessing, man. To be acknowledged by that platform, man. But I'll just keep working and doing what I do, man.
Just keep sweating the technique, and
Yes, sir.
they'll they'll
Yes,
reward you.
sir. Word up.
Well, everyone can come check Rakim out at Bethesda Theater in Bethesda, Maryland on Friday, April 18th. You don't want to
18th.
miss it. This Friday. You only got a couple days left to get tickets, and if you're not buying them, what are you doing with your life? This is a legend, and he's coming in our backyard in Montgomery County, Maryland. You got to check him out. Come on, let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. DC, stand up. Come on out. Have a good time. Me and Technician the DJ got a hell of a show for y'all, man. And we just hope y'all come out and enjoy, man.
All right. Hey, Rakim, this was an absolute honor. If you can't tell the enthusiasm in my voice, I just have loved your songs for so long, and I admire the craft. There's a lot of people you interview, and you're like, oh, this was just a fun song I remember dancing to, whatever. And so you're geeking out with them on one level, but to talk to an actual master of the craft of the songwriting, the lyrics, it is an absolute. This is like all timer stuff for me. So I really really appreciate it.
Man, thank you so much, my brother. That's the words that keep me going, man. Appreciate you.
And
And
I'm
keep up
glad
the
you
good
didn't make
work,
it as a
bro.
quarterback because we need you in rap.
Yeah, man. Yo, I thought of long days and long nights, man, but I think I made the right decision, man.
Yeah. We'll leave that to Jaden Daniels here.
Yes, sir.
He should come
Yes,
out to
sir.
if he's listening, Jaden, come out to Rakim show in Bethesda. All
Come
right.
on out, man. And sign me a jersey, man. Word is born. I'm a big fan, bro. And keep doing what you doing, man. Oh my goodness. Incredible.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks so much again. I really appreciate you.
No doubt, man. Keep up the good work, bro. And hope to see you this weekend, man.
Sounds good. See ya.
Peace and love.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.